lack of faith in our institutions is problematic.
Despite that urgent call from one Republican congressman to just move on, and the fact that Arizona's expensive election audit has only shown Joe Biden won by an even wider margin than we thought, it has inspired copycat efforts in more states. Columnist Greg Sargent writes this in the Washington Post, quote, "It's already clear that some Republicans will not use the audit news to affirm that confidence in our election system has been restored. Instead, they'll use it to continue undermining that confidence for the express purpose of justifying further anti-democratic tactics." Back with us tonight, Don Holloway, who is the Democratic strategist and founder of the National Voter Protection Action Fund, and Bill Kristol, author, writer, thinker, and Politico. He's a veteran of the Reagan and Bush administrations and editor-at-large at The Bulwark. Good to see you guys. So, Bill, I want to play an ad that your group, the Republican Accountability Project, released just today, and it has two Republican, I emphasize Republican officials from Arizona.
I'm Bill Gates, and I'm Vice Chairman of the Maricopa County Board of Supervisors.
My name is Stephen Richer. I'm the Maricopa County Recorder.
If you aren't willing to speak up now, as a Republican, when are you going to? You can't worry about your electoral prospects because we may not have a democracy by the time that you have a re-election.
If lying about the election system, lying about the very form of government with which you were elected, if January 6th isn't your line in the sand, what is?
Look, Bill, we've talked a lot about this, but do you agree? Is it so bad now that you worry literally about the future of our democracy? Is that where we are?
Yeah, I think it would be foolish not to. After what we've seen over the last 4 or 5 years, it's not just Donald Trump, it's that the Republican Party at every moment has capitulated to him, enabled him, and continues to do so amazingly, even though he's no longer president. And now this all has a momentum of its own. So in state after state, the two officials we saw, the honorable officials in Arizona who stood up to the mob, are extremely unpopular with their own party. It's very unclear what their future is. The governor, Doug Ducey, who's a reasonable person, he did call the state. He refused to intrude in the state's election count and help Trump steal the election in Arizona. Nonetheless, he hasn't spoken up against this fake audit. Now these audits are going elsewhere, and whatever they find, they're laying the predicate for, well, we have one election, we have the very careful count, we have a recount, and then we have a kind of crazy audit because they've legitimated the notion that you can get a political group in to overcome or try to overcome the actual election returns. So I think it's bad.
Yeah, Don Calloway, among those states, Texas, I can't say this enough, we can't reiterate this enough, a state Donald Trump won, is now going to do an audit in 4 major counties. In the first 7 months of this year, you know this, 18 states also enacted 30 laws restricting access to the vote. Where does this end?
It ends in Donald Trump coming back and running, quote unquote, successfully in 2024. But prior to that, it ends in sowing seeds of doubt for these midterms we have coming up, the congressional and Senate elections again in 24. And if, again, people begin, as Bill said, people's faith in the democratic process erodes because of what their Führer Donald Trump is telling them and because of what his acolytes are telling them. If their faith erodes, then as populations brown, as more younger LGBTQIA, black and brown people, immigrants become eligible to vote, as they actuarially take over numbers in the population, then you can continue to sow those seeds of doubt to combat that growing electorate, which is more than likely not to vote Republican. And so you've planted these seeds of doubt. They continue to grow and fester and germinate throughout popular opinion. And then you have faith in elections essentially non-existent as a new electorate comes to play. So this is a long-term messaging play on behalf of, I won't even say the Republican Party, I'll just say some really anti-democratic forces, and it's dangerous for the foreseeable future.
Which brings us to the key question of what we do about it. And Bill, our friend Matthew Dowd had some thoughts on what we need to prioritize to safeguard our democracy. Take a listen.
I think today our democracy is broken. 2022 is by far way more important than 2020, because what happens if the Republicans win in 2022? It means that everything they've done, January 6th, all the things that have happened, all the way they've conducted themselves in the aftermath of the 2020 election, they're going to be let loose with no reins. Honestly, vote Democratic from the top to the bottom to try to force the Republicans to change what they're doing.
Bill, what does let loose with no reins look like, and can it be stopped?
Well, we'll see. I mean, I think it would be safer, frankly, if the Democrats controlled Congress for another 2 years, because it would prevent the Republicans from controlling Congress as we go into the November 2024, one house of Congress even, as we go into the November 2024 election, possibly with Trump there. And then we have one house that might go along with his attempt to overturn the results. And of course, who knows what will happen at the state level. They're trying to purge the decent Republican election commissioners and others who stood in the way of Trump. And it's very interesting. Mitch McConnell, remember that speech he gave after January 6th? He was very upset. He didn't quite vote to impeach, but he's not on Trump's team. He's going along with all of the Trumpist candidates now who are running for the Republican nomination in the big Senate seats in Ohio and Pennsylvania, North Carolina, and elsewhere. He has no problem with them, as he's quoted as saying, well, all I care about is if they're Republicans. If all I care about is if we get to 51. He doesn't care about democracy. He cares about the Republican Party controlling the Senate, and it's going to be a Trumpier Republican Party in 2023 than it is now, or than it was 2 years ago.
Bill Kristol and Don Calloway have agreed to stay with us. Coming up, what's next for the president's agenda as he speaks out about the importance of breaking that stalemate on Capitol Hill when the 11th hour continues.